Hello there and welcome once again to M&A Ambassadors. Thank you every week for watching us faithfully on the USP, Becoming the Ultimate Sales Professional. Now, in today's video, I'd like to address an interesting question that I heard this week. How do I ask for the meeting when I'm speaking with a client on the phone? So that was the question. How do I actually ask for the meeting? What's the best question that I could use? Now, before I share that with you, there is a point I would like to make. You see, you cannot just become good at asking for the meeting. There is a presumption before this that you have done everything correctly in the call. You've had the right introduction, you've built a good connect with the client, you've raised some interest of the client, used good hook questions, and when you've done all of that, that's when you are in a very strong place to request for the meeting. Now, there are two ways to do this. There is the direct approach, which is personally my favorite, and then there is the indirect approach. In today's video, I'd like to introduce you to the direct approach. Essentially, the direct approach is where you simply ask for the meeting. But before you ask for the meeting, you set the client up in a way. And there are three different techniques that you could use to set the client up. So the first technique that I would like to discuss with you is called the yes technique. The yes technique is to simply make a statement, end it in a question that gets the client to say yes. So here are a couple of examples of the yes technique. So Ahmed, this makes great sense to you, doesn't it? So if the client says, well, yeah, this makes sense to me, say, excellent. In that case, why don't we schedule a meeting? So you can go straight into it. So I'll repeat that. Ahmed, this makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And if the client says yes, go in with the question for the meeting. The other way you can do this, the yes technique, is this is a really good opportunity, isn't it? Or this investment will give good returns, isn't it? Or can you see how this opportunity actually generates a good return? And if they say, well, yes, I can see that. Well, in that case, why don't we set up a meeting so we can better understand how this works for you? That's a yes technique. Ask any question where the client will say yes to you, and immediately after that, offer the meeting. Because once the client has said yes to something, it's harder to say no to the next question. So that's the trick here. The second one is called a positive build-up technique. In the positive build-up technique, you still take the yes, but you make the client say yes 2 or 3 times. Once they have said yes 2 or 3 times, jump in with the invitation for the meeting. So here's an example of how you would do it. Ahmed, you can see now how this opportunity actually generates good long-term returns, don't you? Client says, well, yeah, I can see that. And we've also seen how this actually reduces your risk long-term, true? Yes, that makes sense. Then I would turn around and ask, so wouldn't now be the best time to understand how you can get into such an opportunity so you can maximize your returns? So once you get the client to say yes a couple of times, it is easy to come in with a meeting question after that, right? Another way to do this, where you'll go for 3 yeses. Ahmed, you've seen how you can make some amazing returns with this opportunity, haven't you? Well, yes, I've seen that. And we've also shown how we have minimized your risk for the time that you're in this investment, true? Well, yes, that makes sense. So the third question I will ask then is, and we've also answered all questions you had with regards to this, haven't we? And if he says yes, with the pattern of the 3 yeses becomes very hard. All you need to do is go in and say, well, in that case, why don't we set up a meeting so I can explain what happens to you next? Pattern of 2 or a pattern of 3. It's called a positive build-up because you get the client in his mind to mentally tick the important boxes where he needs to have the yes. Once those are done, the client will go straight into it. So let me give you the 3 yeses just once again, so to reinforce it. So Ahmed, you've seen how you can maximize returns in this opportunity, haven't you? Well, yes, I've seen that. We've also shown you how this actually reduces risk, haven't we? Well, yes, I've also seen that. And I've answered every question that you had about this opportunity, haven't I? Well, yes, you've answered that. Well, Ahmed, in that case, why don't we set up a meeting so you can better understand how this investment would work for you? So that's the positive build-up. The third technique that you can use is called an associative technique. In the associative technique, you want the client to relate to the opportunity. So typically, if you have qualified the client correctly, introduced the amazing opportunity that you want to present to them, you simply stop and ask, so Ahmed, what did you like about what you heard so far? Associative. What did you like about what you heard so far? So the client says, well, I liked 1, 2, and 3. This made sense. I said, well, in that case, why don't we set up a meeting so I can explain to you better how this opportunity would work. Now, I've got time tomorrow between 10 and 2 and day after between 2 and 6. Which works better for you? Go with a double bind. So that's called the associative technique. So in the yes technique, simply get the client to say yes to any positive question. Go in directly with the invitation. In the positive build-up, get them to say 2 or 3 yeses and immediately go in with your invitation. In the associative technique, you ask them, what did you like about this opportunity? Once they've given that to you, immediately suggest the meeting. I'd like you to try these techniques and give us some feedback in your comments. In the next video, I will deal with the indirect techniques and that approach. And there too, I will show you 3 different techniques. I want to wish you the very best. Keep closing deals. Keep making all clients, buyers and sellers happy in Dubai. Thank you for joining us on this episode of M&A Ambassador, Becoming the USP, the Ultimate Sales Professional.